Everything has a beginning, a genesis if you will. No, not the console. Down, Sega fans, down! No, I'm talking about ideas. Nothing is more interesting or more important than new ideas. Sometimes they come from the world around us, like in the case of Pokemon that we covered a while back. Sometimes they come from other games. The latter is what I want to talk about today, because today I want to talk about platformers. Now, if you've been following this channel for a while, this likely won't be very new to you. However, many of you are new to the channel, so today I want to talk about a game that was a heavy influence to what was to become the platform genre as we know it today, in the form of Pacland. Now, Pac-Man isn't exactly new. He's been around since 1980 in some form or another, from its original release catching the attention of not only the arcades, but the world as a whole, spawning off all sorts of merchandising from shirts, dolls, even board games, all the way up to tracks like Pac-Man Fever. Yep, people even made songs about this game. It was so popular that it even spawned off a cartoon series that ran from 1982 to 1983 that focused around controlling the power pellets that were the main food source and power source for the entire city. His opposition, as always, were the ghosts Inky, Blinky, Pinky, and Clyde, with a new addition of Sue, who was made for the series, and pretty much the game as well. They work for a character called Ms. Maron, who's obsessed with controlling the source of power pellets, a fairly common overarching theme for many cartoons around the time. Think Smurfs and Smurfberries. I know what you're asking though, why are you talking about some old cartoon? Weren't you going to talk about a game? Well, the game is based off of the cartoon. The game itself was pretty basic of a side-scrolling platformer by today's standards, but at the time was pretty revolutionary. See, the goal was pretty basic. Take a fairy that was hidden under Pac-Man's hat from the start of the stage to the end while being pursued by the ghosts, who might be on anything from pogo sticks to actual cars. However, this wasn't quite as easy as it sounded. In your way were fire hydrants, gaps, and small platforms, some of which would even rotate underneath the player, adding extra difficulty, and was one of the first times this kind of mechanic had actually been implemented. It also did a good job with the animation and the stage scrolling. In fact, one of the biggest issues at the time was the animation of Pac-Man himself. Yoshihiro Kishimoto wanted the animation to look more fluid, like you were playing the cartoon, and thought the standard 2 or 3 frames of animation that were the standard at the time were a bit rough for the kind of game that he envisioned. So he and his team gave Pac-Man 24 frame patterns along with various different facial expressions and hats. All in all, it's a pretty impressive achievement for the time. In order to do this, they even made a brand new board by the name of the Namco Pacland board, which would go on to be used in other games like Baradook and Metrocross. This wasn't the only trick the game had though. It also allowed you to move at different speeds by double tapping a direction to move faster, which became almost necessary later in the game to make it across certain locations, along with a glide mechanic that would be implemented by repeatedly tapping forward while in the middle of a jump, which was also fairly unique around this time. This was in and of itself influenced by another game, Track and Field. You see, Yoshihiro had been playing the game and liked how you could move faster by tapping the D-pad and wanted a way to control the speed of Pac-Man, so he decided to emulate that in this game's controls, which also became a useful mechanic for the gliding section as well. But GeekStorian, you say, why are you tapping for all these mechanics? This doesn't make any sense. What's going on with this cabinet? Said no one in particular, or maybe no one in the chat, who knows. Well, let's go into it anyway. That actually had to do with the control scheme. You see, this was a really odd cabinet in and of itself by the fact that it only had buttons for controls, which honestly was a strange design for the 1980s as arcade sticks were pretty common by this time and a pretty normal method of control in most games. Well, the thing was, a lot of these cabinets were conversions, and by that I mean they took one cabinet that was probably underperforming and made it into something entirely new. In this case, it was often a Professor Pac-Man cabinet, which was a multiple choice quiz. They just took these underperforming cabinets and made them into something useful. Despite the game's awkward controls, many of its aspects would go on to be used in other games. Even Miyamoto said he took some inspiration from the skyline in the game for Super Mario Bros. But I would wager some of the movement mechanics as far as the speed and how long it took to slow down also factored in if you look closely at the two games. But still, you can even see its DNA in other games. You know, games like Ghosts and Goblins, Alex Kidd, and Wonder Boy, through its use of dynamic platforms, bright colorful backgrounds, and smooth animation. However, what do you guys think of this one? Have any of you ever played this one? And did you ever think about being this influential before? Which port of it was your favorite, or do you like the arcade version best? Let me know in the comments. And while you're there, please leave this video a like. And if you have not already, follow the channel. That helps me out a ton. For now though, thank you so much for spending part of your day with me, and until we meet again, happy gaming!